Hey everybody, my name's Riley Taggett. I'm a research assistant with Vision Center. As you can tell, I'm a little bit under the weather at the moment, but I'm here with Shay VanEyll. She is a former Vision Center intern. She's a senior at the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire, majoring in healthcare administration. For the last 10 months, she's been completing her administrative residency at the Estates at Chateau, which is a skilled nursing facility located in South Minneapolis. Her facility is home to a very unique population consisting of much younger residents who struggle with substance and alcohol abuse issues, as well as the homeless. This opportunity has been incredible and only strengthened her love for the field and these residents. She will be graduating this coming May and plans to stay in the long-term care field, working as an administrator in training as she continues to fine-tune her administration skills and gain more experience. A little bit about the Vision Center. The Vision Center aims to inspire passionate students in the field of aging services to meet leadership needs of the country with quality higher education programs and partnerships for rewarding, impactful careers. So, Shay, how did you end up at this unique community? I haven't even really heard of communities like this.
Yes, so I originally got placed with another Monarch facility in St. Louis Park with kind of a similar population, but this one is definitely more substance heavy. And then that administrator had left, so they moved me here because it was a unique experience in a facility that I never would have originally applied for. So like you said, it is very mental health and substance use heavy. We have a resident right now who is 18 and is here for substance abuse issues. So it's definitely not the stereotypical cute old people that are going to live in the home forever. It is a lot more of a turnover rate here. So we only have residents for a couple months to a year before they're on to their next thing. We don't have a specific TCU, but we are kind of treated as that since they are much younger. And once they're out of the hospital and in the clear, they usually tend to move on with their lives.
Gotcha. So what is like the typical age range that you guys see? Because typically, you hear skilled nursing, you immediately assume 65 and up.
I would say our average age range is probably 30s to 60s. It is a much younger just because it's that substance issue, and we do have a chemical dependency program on site. So that's Monday through Thursday for 2 to 3 hours a day where they can talk to other residents who are also struggling. They can talk to a licensed chemical dependency counselor and get the help they need. And then this is also like a transitional place for them to get back up on their feet once they're homeless. Because obviously we're not going to discharge them back to the street, so they at least get a warm bed and good food while they get back on their feet.
Wow. So is this facility classified as like a rehab or a detox center?
It is not because it's not mandatory detox or rehab. It's an optional program that they get a certificate if they complete, but they aren't forced to. It is their choice every day whether they want to attend the treatment that we offer or not. Obviously, residents who come here and are looking for something a little bit more stable and scheduled, we can send them to inpatient treatment. We're more of an outpatient treatment type facility, which caters to its own population and needs.
So explain to me, like, what are the steps or like who is the demographic of people who would be coming to your facility?
So since we're located in South Minneapolis, a lot of our residents are homeless and then they're picked up for medical issues and sent to the hospital. And then we have partnerships with HCMC, which is the big hospital around here for Hennepin County, Abbott, Northwestern, Fairview, all those ones. So they know that we cater to those mental health problems or substance abuse. So they'll usually send those residents to us because they know that we're able to take care of them and we're centrally located too closely to where a lot of them came from or live.
Okay, gotcha. So they most likely they come from the hospital. It's not like they can check themselves in type of situation, or is it either
No.
or?
Most of our referrals do come from hospitals. We have some referrals that come from our sister facilities or other facilities in the area that we partner with, but most of them do come from the hospital.
Okay, gotcha. That's really unique. I had no idea that that type of community even existed.
Yeah,
Is this
the
one of
Monarch has three specifically like mental health, chemical dependency buildings that are centrally located. So we have one, it's called Bryn Mawr. It's probably about 5 minutes away. And then we have Lyndhurst, which is in St. Paul. So probably like 15 minutes.
Gotcha. Yeah, that was my question. Is that the only one? So there's obviously a need in the community for these types of facilities then.
Hmm.
Huh. I wonder if there's any ones like that outside of, I mean, I'm sure there has to be outside of Minnesota or anything like that, because that's a really unique demographic that I feel like definitely gets overlooked because I'd never even thought about that.
Yeah, there definitely is more facilities besides just Monarch that are located in the cities that also cater these to these populations. So I'm sure they're in every major city where they're seeing those substance abuse issues or homelessness in large amounts.
Gotcha. So is like the community you're at, would that be like, is it private pay? Is it Medicare? Is it Medicaid? Is it specific to like indigent? What's the type of, clientele kind of?
So a lot of our residents are on Medicaid. We do have a couple Medicare, and then we have a couple every month that are private pay.
Okay.
Otherwise, we have a lot of commercial insurances. So we're constantly dealing with residents being cut off because they are more independent, so their insurances don't think they have a skilled need.
Mm.
So that is also where a big part of our transitioning residents and getting them in and out of the door come in because of the insurance issues.
Gotcha. So is your community strictly like skilled nursing? It has to follow the skilled regulations, or is there other aspects like there would be in a CCRC?
So we are a skilled facility, so we do follow those regulations. What's unique about us is, so it's a 4-story building. The first floor is just offices, the dining room, things like that. Second floor is our low acuity floor. So they're a PA1, which is the lowest skilled need that they can have. So most of those residents are very independent. They're on LOAs a lot of the days. They're mostly just looking for a place to stay and warm meals to have. So they have cars here or they have jobs. And then our other 2 floors are more wound or behavior heavy.
Okay.
Oh, it is skilled nursing, but we're definitely on the lower acuity side of that.
Okay, gotcha. That's really unique. That's really cool to learn about.
It's definitely interesting coming back to Eau Claire and talking to all the other kids at their nursing homes. I'm like, oh, that's not what I did, but
Yeah, no, very much definitely a unique perspective on
mhm.
a
You don't
field
realize how
experience.
crazy it is until you start telling other people.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah. Wow. I wouldn't even think that that would honestly classify as like a residency.
Hmm.
That's really unique.
Definitely a unique experience.
Huh. Well, so a little bit about you. How did you get started in pursuing HCA or senior living?
So it's actually kind of funny. I went to school to be a bio pre-med major. I wanted to be a pediatrician. I feel like in school, especially in high school, like they'll tell you if you want to be in healthcare, you either have to be a doctor or a nurse. And I didn't
Yeah.
want to be a nurse. So I was like, okay, I'll be a doctor. And I loved kids. So I thought pediatrician was the right way. And then it was my second semester of freshman year. And I was taking chemistry and biology at the same time and realized that I absolutely hated that. It was also in the middle of the COVID pandemic, so everything was virtual and online. Um, and I had class with this kid who was in HCAD, and the sad thing is he ended up dropping out to pursue a different major. But when I met him, he introduced himself and we had to say our majors as like an icebreaker in class, and he said that he was in HCAD. And so I asked him more about it, and the logo for or like motto for HCAT at Eau Claire is a head for business and a heart for caring. And I was like, wow, I really love that because I want to be in healthcare to help people, but I also don't want to be taking all of these science classes and all of these medication classes, trying to learn the clinical side of it because I love business and I love being able to express that side. So it sounded perfect. Then I got back to my dorm room and I enrolled into HCAD 101. Luckily, it was only 1 week into the semester. So I started there, and I think within 2 or 3 weeks, I had completely switched my major and joined all HCAD classes.
Wow. Well, that's a unique perspective. And I think a lot of people like in at Western especially, we get a lot of what would have been nurses because the programs are very similar. HCA, that's what we call our program here. They kind of align it so that a lot of the nursing credits you can transfer over to HCA. Like for me, I was not about to take chemistry, so I just took 2 personal health classes instead because that's math is not for me. Like I had to take a science in my undergrad. I took astronomy and that didn't even go very well for me. So I definitely get what you're saying with the math, or you didn't say math. I'm saying math and science for me. They're a little bit much.
Yeah, it was definitely a wake up call. And I was like, I don't know if I want to be doing this for the rest of my life or commit to like 4 more years of schooling after I graduate
Mm.
and then residency and barely make any money.
Yeah, very, very true. I think that a lot of people kind of have that same mindset of I want to work in healthcare, but I don't want to be hands-on. So they do end up in majors or career paths that they don't particularly want. But a lot of people don't really, especially I know Eau Claire obviously is an amazing program for healthcare administration, but I feel like at a lot of schools they either don't have it or you have to go through the 6 years and get your master's in order to work in healthcare administration. So I think that, a little bit more advertisement of HCA is kind of perfect if you want to work in healthcare, but you don't want to be a hands-on doctor or nurse.
No, I agree. It's definitely a program that needs more attention
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
needs to be showcased in both the healthcare and business field because it is a mix of both.
Hmm.
And we need people who have more interest in business than in healthcare and more people that have interest in healthcare than business because there's spots for everybody.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I find really interesting and great, honestly, about healthcare is even like in a senior living company, because most people have the idea of, nope, I don't want to work with old people. When it's like in reality, you could work in senior living, you could be an accountant, you could work in HR, you could be a CFO. Like there's areas for everybody, whether you want to be more healthcare focused or more business focused, or whatever region that you want to focus on, there really is a position for everyone.
Yeah, I agree. It is really nice. And your major just doesn't get you one path.
Hmm.
You can keep it changing and keep it new and fresh.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, with it, you could do hospital administration for a little bit and then go to senior living, whatever really you want to do. I think it's a great path that people don't really understand just the amount of opportunity that you get with that major.
I agree.
So is this your first field experience or do you have any prior internships or anything? Obviously, you worked with Vision Center.
So I actually in Eau Claire, I worked at a memory care facility that was completely private pay. So it was definitely like the polar opposite of what I am getting now, but I loved getting to work in memory care. I was a CNA and TMA, which is just medication passing. So that was definitely a very different um experience, but I'm glad that I got that and I got to work with the memory care residents. And then I also did an internship that was like 2 years, like in the summer and winter, with an OBGYN clinic where I did medical records and helped out with scheduling of patient appointments and things like that. So that was also a really good experience. And those are my two kind of healthcare field related things.
Yeah, so you kind of dipped a toe in both sides of HCA.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that that's really unique because I did a similar thing, but not really. I worked in a cardiac rehab at a hospital in my area, and it was nice. The people were great, but that honed into me that absolutely I did not want to work in a hospital. And so then I switched to food service and senior living, and I was like, this is awesome. But some people have the opposite perspective, so I think it's really cool that you tried both.
Yeah, it definitely was good experience on both sides, and I still pull from those experiences, but I definitely like the more upfront healthcare, long-term care feeling than being in an office, in a clinic, in a hospital somewhere.
Yeah. So is that field experience in memory care what kind of triggered you to go down the senior living health path versus more acute care?
It definitely did help when I first started in HCAD. Our program is very heavily focused on long-term care. All of our practicums and residencies are done in the long-term care side of things. So I was definitely a little bit hesitant because I was like, I did like working at the hospital. I did like that side of things, the fast-paced moving and everything. And I hadn't had experience in long-term care yet. But then after I did work in the memory care facility, it kind of decided that I would stay in long-term care just because I love the residents. I love the people you work with. I love getting to work with the unique population that keep every day very, very interesting.
Yeah, no, that's a perspective that you're gonna have that a lot of other people aren't gonna have.
Mhm.
Like, I know for me, speaking from my field experiences, I've kind of worked in very similar environments, really nothing like that, that's really cool. And honestly, it makes me think that everybody should kind of experience that type of thing.
Yeah, it definitely is somewhere I never would have put myself, but
Mm.
everything I've learned, every weird situation that has come up, I am learning from everything, and I am so lucky to be able to have this opportunity that was kind of decided for me, just to
Mhm.
push me out of my comfort zone and cause me to have a whole new perspective on this industry.
Yeah, absolutely. So what is your ideal career path after you finish this residency? Obviously, you want to stay in long-term care. What are your goals after this?
So I was definitely one of the students who, when I first started this, I was like, I'm going to be an administrator the day I graduate. I'm going to be ready for it. And I think in January, it hit me that you literally know nothing after a year. You're just touching the surface. And it's not even that you don't know the conceptual stuff, it's every single experience or issue or problem that is brought up is so different, and knowing what to say or how to react to each situation is a lot. And the rotations, I don't know if you guys do rotations with your program. Um,
We do we have an internship for our undergrad and then you do one for your graduate program, but it's not as strenuous as you guys. We just do 480 hours. You do rotate throughout, but it's not like you guys where it's very structured and that type of thing.
Okay. So yeah, ours is 2,000 hours for a requirement. And then so they break it into like 6 months and 6 months. So the first 6 months you're in rotations going through every single department for a week or two at a time, depending on the size. So obviously nursing was like a 3 week thing. Medical records was like a 1 or 2 day thing.
Mhm.
Um, and I thought that just being able to experience those positions for that time was going to be enough, especially since you have your packets that you're filling out with the right questions to ask. But it is still a lot, and it's really hard to understand the department in just that short amount of time. So I think Monarch has this program where it's an administrator in training. So you're still working towards being an administrator, and they know that's your goal. But if a facility needs a business office manager, you would go fill in that position for a couple of months or a couple of weeks till they can find a new role for that. If they needed HR in another building, you'd get to go there. So that's kind of something that I think I'm more leaning towards now, just because I don't think that I am personally ready to be responsible for an entire building myself 24/7. I can do a couple days or a couple weeks here and there when my administrator is on PTO. But I think being able to dive into those other positions and spend like a month or two in business office at a new facility would be something that gives me a lot more experience and learning opportunities.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I kind of had the same thought process, with my internships and everything. I'm not licensed yet either, so I'm beginning an AIT program, and I had that same thought, like, oh no, like I don't really know if I'm ready for this. So I'm really glad to be definitely an in training person, but it makes me wonder. I'm like, oh no, after a year, I'm supposed to be in charge of all these people. Like, it
Yep.
really is scary.
It is really scary. Yeah. And I want that, like, I want to be an administrator eventually, but I'm
Yeah.
kind of that I'm not in a rush. It doesn't have to be the Monday after I graduate.
Yeah, no, for sure. My end goal is executive director. So I definitely don't think that that's going to be my first job after I'm an AIT. It will take some
Yeah.
time.
Yes. And just
Um,
getting to like learn the other roles. I think that I took advantage of that when I was first doing my rotations, because I was like, "Oh, I don't really need to know this." But now my administrator switched halfway through the year. But my one now is very involved in the clinical side of everything. I'm like, oh my God, I didn't even know I needed to learn all about that or know that, because every leader, every administrator does things completely different. So it's just kind of figuring out what you're comfortable being involved in and knowing and asking questions.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I've learned, like, how sometimes you're like, oh no, is this a dumb question? I've learned that even if it is dumb, I'm still gonna ask it because it's
Yep.
better to get the answer versus make a mistake.
Yeah. And it's so hard because you're comparing yourself to people who have been in the industry for 5 or 10 or 15
Mhm.
years. And you're like, oh, I don't know anything. And I'm like, hey, you've
Yeah.
been doing this for 10 months. You don't need to be an expert.
Oh yeah, no, one of my internships, my preceptor was like, so what are the Medicaid rates or Medicare rates? I was like, I can't answer that. Like, I really don't know. And he was like, how? I'm like, I don't know. I've just started here.
Yeah, no, insurance is definitely my biggest flaw in this
Me too.
program.
It's
It's
so
so
confusing.
hard.
It's literally so confusing. All the different plans and
Yeah,
co-pays and everything. I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's the one thing I do like about like the skilled. It was like, you got this many days and this is how much after your Medicare expires. It's like, well, that's
yeah,
pretty cut and dry. But
yep.
it cuts off and then it changes. People have secondaries. I get so confused.
And then trying to explain it to residents and they're asking random
Mhm.
questions like, I don't know. I didn't
Yeah.
decide this. And then they're like, well, why is this happening? I'm like, I don't know. I'm
Oh
sorry.
yeah. I literally tell them, I'm like, you know what? That's above my pay grade. And
They
then
can
they're
look at
like,
the insurance.
okay. I'm like, I'm just an intern, like, please.
Yeah, no, that is definitely the hardest part. And everyone is so different and their reasonings are so different that it's like every time you go talk to someone, it's something new.
Yeah, no, absolutely it is. Every time without fail.
Hmm.
What would you say are some things that you think that people who are not in the senior living industry should know about?
I would just say how heavily regulated it is.
Mhm.
It's definitely hard to understand all the things that go into providing a home for people or a person themselves. And it's kind of all the things you don't think about, like having to make sure they don't go 16 hours without a snack or dinner and breakfast. And it's those type of things that I don't think someone outside of the field would really put much time or effort into
Mhm.
understanding because they're just assuming that everyone eats dinner, everyone eats lunch and breakfast. It doesn't really matter when, as long as they're getting fed.
Mhm.
Uh, so just kind of understanding how many things go into taking care of a successful nursing home. Um, and then I would just say understanding insurances and what that can mean. Just because like before I started, I had no idea that commercial insurance was bad. I
Mhm.
I knew insurance was super expensive and I figured that people who paid a lot of money had good insurance and there wasn't really any bad insurances that were looking for people to be able to cut off or like insurances that nursing homes would specifically not take. So I think just having a better understanding of what each insurance means and is coming from when they're accepting patients onto their plans.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I think that you bring up a good point with, just letting people understand the regulations because that's an issue that we've talked about on this podcast before because, I've noticed that a big issue with senior living is the miscommunication about the parts of the continuum.
Mhm.
People think that independent living and skilled nursing can be used synonymously, and it couldn't be farther from the truth. So I think that, and there's different regulations throughout the whole continuum. So having people be more informed about that would definitely be beneficial.
Yeah, and I agree, and that's where the understanding insurance comes in too, because we have so many family members who are like, well, they have insurance. I don't understand why this isn't covered or why they can only stay here for 20 days before they start having to pay or have a spend down. And
Yeah.
it's like they have one thing on the sheet of paper when they're helping their family members do the insurance, and then it's completely different when they're actually in the facility or figuring out what it is that they actually need. And I think at least here, a lot of families and residents in general have definitely gotten screwed by the insurance system because they do pry off of the less knowledgeable family members or residents that are looking for this. And it ends up screwing them in the long run or affecting their social security or ability to receive care.
Yeah. No, I didn't even think about that. That's a really good point. What would you say throughout this current field experience has stuck out to you the most, or something that you would want people to know?
I think just the importance of rotations. Like I said, I kind of took advantage of those and I was like, well, I already worked in long-term care for 3 years. Like I know how nursing departments work. I know how activities and dietary work. Like I've already done all that. My facility was much smaller. It was only 35 residents where I worked in Eau Claire. So we didn't have culinary aides or activity aides. The CNAs were kind of in charge for all of that. So I was like, I already know how to do all this. And then getting to skilled nursing, it's like you may understand the front side of it, but what goes into the care plans, what goes into MDS, what goes into when state walks in and they want your survey binder, and each department needs to have all their things in a row for that. And then just dealing with state survey in general is scary.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The intricacies of senior living do appear never ending, that's for
Yes.
sure. And yeah, state surveys, I only saw one and it scared the crap out of me. I'm like, how am I supposed to conduct one of these?
Yeah, they are definitely scary. And then they want the answer right away. I'm like, I don't
Mhm.
know.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a learning curve that me and you are gonna have to learn at some point.
Mhm.
Well, Shay, I want to thank you so much for taking the time. Again, this is the InVision podcast, and I'm Riley Taggart's a research assistant or research intern. What am I talking about? With the Vision Center. Thank you all for listening. Bye.